Hey guys, there's a lot of chatter out there today about the real estate market and what's going on. So we wanted to make a video to give you the positives, the negatives, so that way you could develop an opinion of your own. At the end of this, I'm going to give you my advice, my own opinions, and how I'm preparing as well. So we just got back from this year's 30 Under 30 conference, and we got to meet a lot of high-level real estate professionals around the country. We got a great education in from one gentleman who we're going to be talking about a lot of his data and statistics today. His name is Kyle Kovacs, who put on a presentation that was out of this world. So follow him on Instagram, Kovacs Real Estate School down here, and I'm sure Ron can put a little nice thing down there for you. But I want to go over some of the information that he had shared with us. I'm also going to go over some of the information that you may be hearing in the news headlines today. So let's start there. Now, one thing that I noticed, and I'm sure everybody out there who pays attention, the negative news headline is always the loudest. I've been licensed now for about 9 years. And I've seen the market when it was low, I've seen the market when it was balanced, and I've seen the market rise. And throughout that entire period, the negative news headline was always the loudest. What do I mean by that? When the market is down, the news headline is, how much worse is it going to get? How much worse is it going to get? AKA, they are highlighting the negative because that draws in fear, that draws in viewers, that increases their revenue, and that keeps you watching. So when the market is down, their news headline is, sky's falling, how much worse is it going to get? When a market is up, like we've seen in the past 4 or 5 years, their news headline is, the real estate market is up, when is it going to come down? So you'll notice the media is always paying attention to the negative. So keep that in mind whenever you're scrolling through Facebook and reading a headline. Reading a headline is not a representation of the market. It's not an accurate way to develop your information. You've got to dig into the details to really understand what's going on. Because no matter what, whether the real estate market is good and it's going to remain good, or whether it's bad or it's going to remain bad, you can always count on the media highlighting negatives and drawing in fear. So let's talk about some of the good things that the media is not sharing with you. Now, Mr. Kovacs, who spoke at our 30 Under 30, was amazing. Mr. Kovacs runs call it a real estate hedge fund. He takes people's investments, and instead of investing it into stocks, he manages the fund and purchases real estate. So it is his #1 job to know where the market is, where it is going, where it is coming from. And he analyzes data on a national basis as well as a hyper-local basis. This guy was flawless, and I could not wait to come home to interpret his information and share it with you. So let's start there. One of the big point outs that I came away with from Kyle's presentation is that this is not 2006 or 2008. There are some really big differences that are really important to know, because while the media is spinning the negative headline, automatically your mind goes to, if they're talking about real estate crashing, the last crash I can associate with is 06 through 08. That's what people are going to start referencing. So let's draw some clear lines here. This is not 2006, 2008. I want to start by talking about supply and demand. Historically, it takes roughly 7 months worth of inventory for homes to stop appreciating. What does that mean? A real estate term that we use as professionals is called an absorption rate. An absorption rate measures supply and demand in a given real estate market. So for example, if Patchogue sells 20 homes a month and there are 40 homes available for sale, Patchogue has 2 months worth of inventory. Their absorption rate is 2 months. When you have a low absorption rate, somewhere around 1 month, 2 month, 3 months worth of inventory, that means a market is in a seller's favor. When you have a high absorption rate, somewhere around 8, 9, 10 months worth of inventory, that means that a market is going to be in a buyer's favor. Historically, it takes roughly 7 months of inventory for prices nationally to not move up and not move down. Now, currently we have roughly 3 to 4 months worth of inventory on a national basis. That is under 7 months, which means we are still appreciating. Now, news headlines might say appreciation is down. That could mean a variety of things. Maybe we're no longer appreciating at 10%, now we're appreciating at 8%. We are still appreciating in value, but not at the rate that we were a couple of months ago. That does not mean home prices are coming down. That just means the rate at which they are appreciating is slowing or coming down. Now, the supply and demand monthly number changes depending on which area you're in. So for example, Mr. Kovacs shared with us a list of cities and at what point each individual city and location experiences depreciation, zero appreciation, or positive appreciation. When New York has roughly 4 months worth of inventory, between 4 and 5 months worth of inventory, we're at a standstill. That's a balanced market, not leaning one side or the other. But New York is still below that inventory line, so prices still are appreciating. Supply and demand still, days on market, DOM is still at all-time lows. So we're very used to a market where it takes 4 days to sell a house for $50,000 over asking price. A normal balanced market, when I first got into the business, houses were staying on market or their DOM were anywhere from 75 to 90 days. So that's what balanced looks like. Now we are experiencing days on market increasing, but 82% of homes are still selling within a month. Yes, that is not what it was 6 months ago or 4 months ago, but that is a far cry from a balanced market where homes are typically staying on for about 75 to 90 days. Another thing, the amount of new listings is actually down in comparison to last year, according to Mr. Kovacs. Now, some data that may be being projected to you may reflect that existing home sales are up because since days on market is increasing, more inventory is staying on the market longer. However, the rate at which that inventory is replenishing, aka new listings, is down in comparison to last year. So you may have overall supply increase, but new listings seems to be decreasing based on the data that Kovacs shared with us. Another very important thing to point out that is extremely different from 2006, 2008, equity is at an all-time high. In 2006, people were purchasing properties with 3% down, or they were even borrowing 110% of a property's value, which means if you purchased at $300,000, your loan to the bank was actually for an amount of $310,000, $320,000, $330,000. You were upside down the minute you purchased it. Today, we have roughly $11.5 trillion of what's called tappable equity. What Mr. Kovacs broke down for us was the average American has so much equity in their home that they can pull out roughly $150,000 to, in some cases, $250,000 out of their house and still have 20% equity. So what does that mean? So the average home is roughing around $500,000, yet the average homeowner owes about $210,000 on that house. So if you're that average homeowner, you can still refinance, pull out $200,000 in equity, so where now you owe $400 on that home, and you will still have $100,000 equity left in your $500,000 home, aka you're not paying PMI. So the average American has roughly $200,000 that they can pull out of the house and still have 20% equity, which is massive. That number, I think he's mentioned there's only 3 countries in the world that have a GDP in the amount of 11.5 trillion. Yet we have that much equity just in our homes. That is a far cry from 2006 and 2008. Now, we measured supply versus demand, emphasis on supply. Now I want to talk demand versus supply. What is really important to know, we have the largest population of 30 to 35-year-olds of all time. That's considered a household formation age, which means no matter what, we have the largest demand of homes ever. And the rate at which we are producing new construction is nowhere near high enough to keep up with the household formation ages being at their all-time high. That's really important. AKA supply still does not match demand, and it's not even close. So those are some positives that your negative news outlets are not highlighting to you. But let's not ignore some of the information that they are sharing with us, which government intervention. Anytime government involves itself or injects itself into a free market, you can expect something to go wrong. Now, we made videos in November talking about inflation well before anybody else was. The government was looking at inflation as a result of them printing so much money, and it was expected that rates were going to go up in the first quarter of this year, possibly the second quarter of this year. Well, we're there and it's happening. So interest rates are rising. Everybody knows that at this point. And Jerome Powell, the head of the Fed, he is battling inflation, aka he is battling the prices of goods and homes from increasing too much by making it far more expensive to purchase them in hopes that that will bring prices down. Now, that's his way of battling inflation. Another important news headline, there are some people out there who are saying Jerome Powell is determined to bring down the housing market. One of my bankers named Kevin Dayton, I have long conversations with him all the time about the housing market. And one of the ways that he put it to me was our government looks at inflation as one of the worst economic crises a country can go through. And the way that Jerome Powell is thinking of handling this is think of it like a baseball team. Jerome Powell wants to get rid of the entire team, start from square one, bring on new ones, change the structure. He understands that that's going to mean 2 to 3 years of pain for the organization. However, he wants to go through it anyway. So that's one way that our friend Kevin Dayton broke it down that I think is in great terms to share it with you. So there's talks of that. Now, every time Jerome Powell steps up and says something, he either does the opposite, he doesn't do it. You really can't bank on what he says because the Fed ends up doing different things regardless of what they say up front. Now, how are interest rates rising impacting our markets right now? Let's take Long Island, for example. So, if you wanted to purchase a home in, say, Patchogue, New York, for $550,000, which is a step above move-in ready, you could purchase a house that you won't have to renovate immediately. This is going to be a nice house that's in decent condition. If you were putting 10% down on a $550,000 home in Patchogue that had $12,000 a year in taxes, your mortgage payment today, with interest rates where they currently are, which is in the low sixes, you're going to be paying upwards of $4,000 a month. That is a massive number. So it's clear that that's expensive. We haven't seen average mortgages in that realm here on Long Island, I don't know if we've ever seen that. If what they say is true and Mr. Powell is determined to bring prices of homes down by raising interest rates, the question is real estate going to become more affordable? The more they raise interest rates, the more expensive your home is on a monthly basis. Now, let's say they raise the rates to 7 or 8. That number is going to increase, which now the only way to bring it down would be for the prices of homes to come down. Now, if the average home, instead of being $550 in Patchogue, comes down to $450 in Patchogue, but you're at a 7.5% interest rate because that's the straw that it took to break the real estate markets back, you're still going to be paying $4,000 a month for that $450,000 home because they had to continue to raise interest rates to bring the price of the home down. So yes, you may be getting in at a lower price, but you're still paying a very, very high mortgage payment regardless. My thoughts on this is if Mr. Powell succeeds in lowering the price of real estate, what's going to happen is that demand that is there, who is saying, look, maybe right now I'm not really willing to pay $4,000 a month, they still need homes. This is a market that may go towards renting, but the minute real estate becomes any more affordable, you're going to see those buyers come back into the market and raise the prices yet again until the true market value on a monthly basis establishes itself. So I think if that mortgage payment starts coming down because prices start coming down, the demand is going to come flooding back in, driving the price of the home back up to where you're still meeting somewhere around this mortgage payment per month. If prices were to go down from $550 to $450, but the interest rate had to increase to 7.5% in order for that price to drop down that low, you're still paying upwards of $4,000 a month for that home, even though you're purchasing it at $450. So does that necessarily mean it's more affordable? It's a give and take. Now, I want to tell you how I'm processing this and how I'm preparing, because my path to financial freedom is purchasing real estate. And the mindset that I follow is what I've learned from the greatest investor of all time, Mr. Warren Buffett. And Mr. Warren Buffett will tell you, time in the market is far more valuable than timing the market. When I sit down and I process this, I realize that all of this fear that may be pushing me to try and time the market. If our real estate price is going to come down, is it going to get more affordable? If I wait a little bit longer, can I get a property at a better price? If, time the market. But when you really sit and you process it, and if you're grounded in your investment principles, the way I feel I am, I'm sticking by my investment principles, which is time in the market is what you want to shoot for. Regardless of whether prices are going to go up, regardless of whether prices are going to go down, I'm going to be purchasing real estate. I'm not going to be making my purchase decisions based off of timing the market. I'm going to be making my purchase decisions based off of, it doesn't matter whether the price of real estate over the next 2 years goes up or down, because I'm holding that asset for 20 to 30 years. In the 20, 30-year time frame, it does not matter what any of this means, because you are going to win. That's the mindset I take. I'm not going to let the fear of anything take me off of my investment principles, which is buy and hold, buy and hold, buy and hold. The way I look at it is, if I purchase a property for $550 and the price of that property skyrockets and goes to $650, I'm still not going to be selling that asset. I'm still going to be holding it for 20 years. If I purchase it at $550 and it goes down to $450, I'm still not going to be selling that asset within the short term. So why make my decision based off of what's going to happen over the next 2 months, 2 years, or 5 years? My decisions are based off of what's going to happen over 20, 30-year time frame, because you can never lose, and that allows you to not get caught up in this fear-based, which, look, this could be accurate. Whether prices could come down, I'm still purchasing, and I'm not waiting for that to happen to make my decision. For those of you out there who are watching this, and maybe you're not assessing this based on buying an income asset, an income producing home, maybe you're looking at this saying, Steve, I'm looking to purchase a house to live in. That's different than an income producing home. You have to ask yourself, can you afford your monthly payment with the rise of gas, with the rise in prices of food, with the rise of prices of everything else because of inflation? You make your decision based off of whether or not you can afford it. And if you can't, I definitely don't recommend putting yourself in a situation where you're at risk for losing your home because you can't afford the monthly payment. Wait until you can afford. Do not wait to time the market. Wait until you can purchase the proper asset because you can afford it, not because you're timing the market. So that's my advice to you. I hope that was helpful. Thank you again to Kyle Kovacs at Kovacs Real Estate School. I appreciated all your knowledge, and I hope that was helpful. Later.